We break down the Trinidad Chambliss lawsuit with the man that is tasked with being a legal expert this week, Michael Katz, stand-in maybe for Matlock, possibly a little Boston legal. What could possibly go wrong? This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Willis. We're the most watched Ole Miss podcast out there, and I'm a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former Ole Miss staff member as well. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now it's the number one sports podcast network in America because of fans like you taking in content like this, and we will never go without saying how thankful we are that is happening. On today's show, we're talking Trinidad Chambliss with Michael Katz of the Northeast Mississippi Daily Journal and find out what journalists are saying about this case. We'll probably joke a little bit as well. You're familiar with Michael on this show. All of this and more on today's Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Remember, we're free on all the podcast apps and on YouTube. And a special hello to the insiders and everydayers who make this show what it is, your team every day. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. We put the same drive into every detail. Wins define every moment. Putting in the work, well, that defines you. Stay tuned for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. There's more to Mazda because there's more to you. All right, Michael, we know about your stint on Boston Legal and Law and Order and Matlock and all that, and how much of an expert you are when it comes to Chancery Court law, which everybody is having to brush up on right now. 4 years of law school, no, we can handle this in 24 hours. So tell me what's going on. What do you think is going to happen over the next couple days?
I actually just passed the bar yesterday. Crazy. I've been doing a lot of research for this Trinidad Chambliss case, and my history of watching a lot of Law and Order growing up is finally paying off. It's you know, in a former life, I did breaking news. So I had some cops and courts experience, but it's very different. One, obviously it's Chancery Court compared to some of the more serious courts, but two, just the attention that is on this, and it's crazy. And there's just so many similar cases happening right now. And you're getting some of the biggest, national people in the sport tweeting about the very thing that, I'm on the database looking at the documents, every day about. So it's crazy. I'm not surprised the NCAA denied it again. I don't know if that was in their best interests, given how I think this is going to go. But, listen, if we're playing the odds game, when the court is located 40 minutes away from Oxford, I believe, in beautiful Calhoun County. Again, listen, you never bank on biases and whatnot, but, the judge got his JD from Ole Miss. There's a lot of factors that appear to be going Ole Miss's way, and that's just not even to say the stuff that's actually, in the affidavits and the documentation and whatnot. It just kind of feels like the NCAA is kind of just trying to kick it down the road for as long as it can before it eventually realizes what's about to happen. But it could be, Thursday is going to be interesting. I've never covered one of these in person, and I think I'm going to be with a lot of my closest media friends at a courthouse that probably cannot hold all of us.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of the courthouse. I want to know who the rich person is in Pittsboro, Mississippi that got that built, because it definitely doesn't match the other buildings in that area. So I am curious about that. But is it interesting to you that the genuine random college football fans or the flyover media, when they look at this, they want to put Trinidad Chambliss and Charles Bediako and Joey Aguilar all in the same bucket, when reality says these are three completely different cases. And Trinidad Chambliss is, honestly, if he was still in D2, it would be a rubber stamp. This would already be done. The whole fact of him going from D2 to D1 and the test for the documentation provided, that is where the disconnect has become.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the things that's cited in there is that if he was still at Division II, this really wouldn't even be a conversation. It would have been a foregone conclusion that he would have gotten that year. But obviously he's no longer there. Yeah, I mean, listen, there's the situation happening at Alabama with Bediako is a very, very different set of circumstances than what we are dealing with here. We are dealing with, as much as we talk about how the college sports is becoming professional. This was literally a case of, is this guy a professional or a pro, and how do you balance why is he allowed to go back after already leaving the program to begin his professional career? And then, of course, the Aguilar thing is probably a little closer to Chambliss, but obviously has its own set of stuff and circumstances. I think that it's easy to sort of put them all together, probably because it's all happening around the same time and everybody's trying to get answers within the next few weeks and days and whatnot. But no, they are very different. I think that I'm not a lawyer, though I play one from time to time. Trinidad's kind of seems pretty cut and clear if you look at a lot of the info in there. And listen, a lot of people are becoming experts on tonsillitis and whatnot, and the symptoms and how bad it really is, and all these sorts of things. But listen, there's a lot of documentation in there. I think part of the problem is probably that this was an issue in 2022 is the year they're trying to get back. A lot of the information wasn't called upon until 2025. And so there's the question of, well, if it was that bad, why didn't you ask for the info before? And the easy answer there is because it probably wasn't going to be an issue of him getting a red shirt at the D2 level. He wouldn't have even needed it. It would have been easy. So yeah, it's fascinating. Again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a lawyer, but there's a lot of stuff in there that, if we're looking at precedent and things, the NCAA has given extended eligibility to a lot of players in recent years, and it feels like they've done it for less.
Yeah, and the one thing that's interesting to me over this whole thing is because there's 91 pages of notes that have been submitted. And the NCAA made their decision based off of the words that they picked and chose out of the notes, but they gave zero weight to the attending physician's words that actually wrote the notes down. And that is a horrible look.
Yeah, no, it's again, if you read the letters from the doctors and the sworn affidavits and all that sort of stuff, this was not like, I think we think of tonsils as like a kid thing, but like this, depending on who you're reading in these documents, like this was a very serious issue where he couldn't sleep, he was tired all the time. Like this is a serious thing. I think the thing I thought was really interesting, and I didn't pick this up until yesterday, again reading another one of the sworn affidavits, and I think this one was from someone on the NCAA committee. So obviously coming from a different perspective than the doctor's notes. But that, he didn't get the surgery, I believe, until 2024. And the tonsils ultimately out, which, whatever. You try to treat it however you can until then. But it was one of the things that the person points out is that, well, he had symptoms in 2024 too, that were as bad, if not worse, than he did in 2022. And he started all 15 games or whatever it was, and he won a national championship. And if it was that bad then how could it have, how could he not have played in 2022? And it's just, there's just these false equivalencies, and just trying to figure out, like, I don't know how bad it was. I'm not Trinidad Chambliss's tonsils. Like I don't physically know how bad it was, but listen, doctors stand to lose a lot for having sworn testimony that is not accurate. They stand to lose a lot if they're, not sincere in what they're doing. And when they say, like, hey, Trinidad Chambliss, we support his decision to try to get a year back because he was really hindered by this. Like, yeah, I think that should hold some weight.
All right. When we come back, I'm going to tell everybody the smoking gun potentially in this Trinidad Chambliss thing. We're going to talk with Michael Katz, and we are going to have a good time doing it. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Saturday, one last kickoff, one final chance to get on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, riding with the underdog, or building one last same-game parlay, this is the game that everyone has been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, well, the season's all over. So it's last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax full service, you can have your taxes done by a trusted local expert start to finish without all of the stress or the guesswork. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every single deduction. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and gives a real peace of mind knowing that an expert is handling it. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by that local expert for just $150, all in, if a TurboTax expert did not file for you last year, that is. Just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. Hey, do us a favor, like, subscribe, and comment on the video. Subscribe to the podcast on whichever audio podcast you're listening to and give it a 5-star review. It costs absolutely nothing, but it keeps all of this free. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network in America. This all because of you, Loomers. Thank you so much. You already live your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Ole Miss with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 per year. Go to lockedonolemiss.supercast.com or check the link out down in the show notes below to learn more. All right, so Michael, I've got the smoking gun. Everybody's been wanting the smoking gun. I've got the smoking gun. The smoking gun comes at about 2 hours and 17 minutes of the national championship game between Ferris State and Valdosta State, where the announcers were vamping in a blowout loss by Valdosta State. In that game, they gave a timeline that Trinidad Chambliss went in. They mentioned specifically a 2021 redshirt. They mentioned specifically a 2022 medical redshirt. And here's the thing, and this contradicts everything that the NCAA was saying or tried to say. They would not have heard that if they did not hear it directly from Ferris State. That's the reason. That's the way those fly-by-night announcers go by. The announcers meeting, they get those notes. They got Trinidad's timeline. It was directly pointed out, and they put it out in the broadcast. I think it's an open and shut case, man.
Yeah, no, and now we're gonna get to the I don't even know if it's a question, but I guess the debate of, well, is the documentation for a redshirting at D2 different than how you have to do it for D1 and blah 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 blah. And well, they didn't take the necessary course of action to get the red shirt actually to all these sorts of things. But yeah, I mean, it is pretty funny when the announcers lay it out there like that. Especially, again, if any, these are guys getting notes from the schools themselves. In Ferris State, if they are calling it a medical red shirt, then they must actually consider to have the sort of thing that they need. It's going to be interesting to see who had what and who had it when.
Yeah, it's going to come down to that. But the fact that they said it it just completely contradicts what the original point was. Because if you remember a couple of 3 weeks ago, oh, Fair State's not cooperating at all. There's nothing. That was the line of questioning that was going around, and that turned out to be not true from the very beginning, which makes you wonder if any of it's true. Coming there, they just want. To me, okay, I'm about to put my tinfoil hat on right now in conspiracy theory. I think the NCAA wants to lose major cases in court that get a lot of eyeballs so that Congress finally has what it needs to warrants to act on a situation. That is my conspiracy theory. That's the only thing that makes sense, because I don't think it would be shocked if the NCAA lost all 3 of those in very short order.
If that's the end game, then man, they're putting themselves in a really good position to lose all of these. Yeah, no, it's yeah, again, without in a ton of actual lawyer and doctor knowledge, the Trinidad one seems to be probably the cuttest and driest. If you're just looking at, here's what they're arguing, here's what information is out there, here's what the resolution should be. So, yeah, I mean, listen, the NCAA has proven over the years it's not afraid to take some L's. It takes them rather frequently, especially these days. So, yeah, I mean, I just can't imagine that when they're ruling, or when it was announced that it had been denied again, that they said, yeah, we got him, he's not going to play again. Like, there's no way they thought it was over. And if you don't think it's over, why even rule that way if you know it's going to get reversed?
Yeah, and the statement that came out of Ole Miss, that was very un-university statement. Even when you plan to do legal actions, that was almost a middle finger going up in a statement.
Yeah, no, Ole Miss has had some heaters over the two. I guess the first one was like the day after the Fiesta Bowl, which impeccable timing, NCAA. Thank you for that. I was in the airport in Glendale, Arizona, and I'm like, we're doing this right now, really? And I think Keith had a statement that was pretty scathing. And then obviously the one that came out very soon after Pete Thamel's report was it's charged, man. I mean, this is a hot button issue, and I think Ole Miss is probably pretty. Listen, there's a lot of things happening in college sports right now. This probably isn't one that they feel like they need to be dealing with as intensely as they are.
Yeah, and the funny thing to me is, you're going to take these L's in court. If my conspiracy theory is true, you're going to take these L's in court, and you're going to go to Congress, and Congress is going to say, we're just kind of busy right now. We got other stuff going on. You're going to have to wait, and then the news cycle goes away, and it's all for nothing.
Yeah, that's always one of my favorite things, is like, well, let's have Congress decide this. And I'm like, man, listen, I know college sports is really important. It's our livelihood, but like, they do have bigger fish to fry rather than eligibility rulings on, Division II transfers. There's a lot of other stuff happening around the world right now. So, yeah, no, it's the idea that this would get pushed to the front of the line has always made me laugh a little bit. Wishful thinking. And it would make for some intense TV. But yeah, the idea that this would instantly get solved by Congress is, I just don't think that's how it's going to happen.
Yeah, especially, why would you reward the NCAA by saving a mistake that they made themselves over and over again? They're the reason that we're in this position. So my feeling is, they want Congress to solve a problem that they created themselves by making corruption legal. That is probably what they're looking for, because I think I said on one of my shows earlier this week, there will always be Ole Miss football that I can watch. It'll be here. The NCAA, there won't always be an NCAA.
Yeah, it's the meme of like, we're all trying to find the guy who did this, and it's like, if only we could find the organization that is having trouble governing itself, and can't keep all of its things in tow, and is creating these rulings that everybody seems to like. It seems like the vast majority of people just kind of groan when we see these rulings. They're like, ugh, they're doing this again, and everyone's like, stupid NCAA. Well, like if enough people say it enough times, like maybe it's time to look in the mirror and be like, hey, maybe we should just handle things differently. I understand them sticking to their guns. I get it. They do what they do. But maybe it's time to face the music that they're digging themselves in their own graves at this point. And if it's just going to get reversed, they're just kind of wasting everybody's time.
Yeah, they might be the last organization also that's using the term student athlete, by the way, too. So when we come back, we are actually going to get into some of these spring sports. We're going to talk basketball and all of that. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. This is Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who show there's more to the score than what's on the screen. AJ Storr moving to 6-man. That's been one of the lone bright spots for Ole Miss on the basketball season this year. It's kind of unlocked the player. And as the result, he's been the unquestioned star of the team. That's not what we expected going into the year, but that's what we got. These things remind us what it actually takes to raise the bar. It's the extra work off the court, dialing in every detail, giving it that extra fire, that grit, and that I never quit. We put that same passion into every model. Highlights that make the real what it took to get there makes it count. So if you're interested in Mazda, test drive one today, because there's more to a Mazda, because there's more to you. All right, Michael, one thing's interesting coming up. This basketball season, especially on the men's side, is not what you expected. AJ Storr has been good. Elias Comardine has not quite adjusted. You expected more out of him. There's been a lack of a big man presence down low. They're getting out rebounded, even though they're more athletic and bigger than they've been. It's just a weird year. And you look at Chris Beard, it seems like he's trying something different every single night to try and get their attention. And we're kind of at the point where just maybe you can't.
Yeah, I think this team just might be what it is at this point. You bring up the rebounding, and all off season and heading into the season, like Chris Beard made a note to talk about Malik Dia and how he needed to be better as a rebounder and as a presence, and that if he really wanted to be an NBA player, you can't just be a guy who's getting 4 or 5 rebounds a night in the SEC. And he hasn't taken that step, and I think that's a big part of this. Don't get me wrong, he's a really good player, and when he's on, he's on. But that other part of his game that Chris Beard really was harping on hasn't developed. Again, AJ Storr is a really good player. You have like pockets of really good players, and they play really well individually at different times. But it just never seems like they're all playing well at the same time when they need to. Last year's team had so much chemistry, and that was a very old team. That was a team that had guys who had been with the program for several years, Matt Morrell and Jamin and all those guys. But that team just seemed to be able to understand when it had to play a certain way and when it needed to be like, hey, this is winning time. That team understood those situations, and this team, they haven't been blown out a ton. It's been a lot of kind of close games, which maybe that's almost worse, because it means you're not that far off, but you're far off enough that you can't solve the problem. And no matter how many ways you try to tinker it, and who you start and who you bring off the bench, and it just kind of seems to be the same result. So, Chris Beard's a really good coach. I think this team just kind of is what it is at this point, and it does not appear like it's going to be one that's going to be playing, deep into March and April this year.
Yeah, and we talk about that. Then we move over to the women's side with Coach Yo. They're 19-5 right now. They just dropped a game by, I think, a point to Alabama. It was a game that there seemed to be a little bit of talk on Twitter being kind of one-sided officiating, but I didn't see the game, so I can't really comment on that. But this is an Ole Miss women's basketball team that the sole question is, can they host?
Yep.
And it's going to be all about hosting at this point. Do you think Coach Yo and the Lady Rebs can get it done?
I mean, this stretch that they have coming up, I think they're off for like a week basically now, which they need given that they've been on the road for like 10 days after not being able to play at home for a bit. I think they have Arkansas, and then they have a stretch of like Kentucky, LSU, and South Carolina. You got to win a couple.
There's somebody else too. I think there's somebody else in there too.
Tennessee's in there too.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
I mean,
it's 4 games in 6 days or something like that. It's very Sewanee, 1899.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that stretch again, I think that, we'll see how that goes. I think last night would have really helped because that would have been a ranked win and that's a game that they should have won. I mean, listen, there was, the offensive foul late on Cody McMahon that, I know Coach Yo wasn't particularly excited about, but they missed 10 free throws in that game. You can't go 17 of 27 on the road from the free throw line and expect to consistently win games. So I think that would have been a big one again, especially since they got that really big win over a top 10 Vanderbilt team, last week. And the momentum was really headed in the right direction. Doesn't mean that it's not anymore, but I think getting that 20th win now would have gone a long way. They were number 13. They probably move up close to the 10 line. That's got to be a host or at least in the conversation. They were in the conversation last year. I think they should have hosted last year. Obviously, It didn't work out that way, and they made the best of it. They won their they made it to the Sweet 16. But I think that this next stretch, you got to split. You can't go winless, obviously. If you can't lose to all the best teams on your schedule, you just can't do that. And again, getting the win against Vanderbilt was huge. They already have that win over Oklahoma. They have ranked wins, and they're very good wins. But in an SEC where there's a lot of really good teams, man, you got to claw one out against LSU or Tennessee or South Carolina or Kentucky, like. Because listen, the committees, the tournament committee looks at those sorts of things. If they say, oh well, they lost this stretch of games against ranked teams, how good are they? Well, take it out of their hands, win the games, and you don't make them have that conversation. So I think they're in a really good spot. Last night I think would have helped a lot, but they're going to have a lot of opportunities in the next few days or next few weeks to get some marquee wins.
Okay, so what's going on over at the Daily Journal for you, man?
Well, apparently it's baseball season in a week.
Pitchers and catchers report next week.
I swear, dude, I just got back from Glendale, Arizona, and now we are talking about Mike Bediako and the boys. So yeah, it's crazy. A lot of basketball coverage. Obviously, tomorrow's men's game is going to be an interesting one. They go and play at Texas. Obviously, there's some history there with Chris Beard. I'm really fascinated to see what that looks like. I'm sure that ESPN is going to be on its guard for certain things said and whatnot. But that's a really interesting one, and that's a big game for the men too. Can you get this thing back on track? Is it too late to get the at-large bid? Yeah, I mean it's not looking very good right now. But listen, can you get some momentum and get hot in the SEC tournament and make a run? Maybe they can. So obviously covering that, covering the women as well. They're off till next Thursday, and then baseball starts a week from today against, I believe it's Nevada, and you've got first-team All-American pitcher Hunter Elliott back for his 17th year of eligibility. Hey, he got a medical red shirt.
Yeah, he got a medical red shirt. Yeah, I was about
literally
to say
just made him a junior again.
Yeah. So you got Hunter Elliott for 2 years. Yeah, good job.
So, but yeah, lots of it's that time of the season, and maybe most importantly, not necessarily related to this job, but I finally get to teach my first class at Ole Miss this semester. I have not taught a single class yet because it's been closed.
Nice. Well, good luck with that. And
I was supposed to start like 3 weeks ago, and I have not done anything yet.
Well, we will. You'll have to cue everybody in whenever you're on next week of how that went, because by then I guess it should be the first class at that point.
And then it's almost spring break already. Like, what are we doing, man? Come on.
All right.
Anything done.
All right, Michael. Thank you very much. And we'll talk to you later. And thank you for tuning into the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. We're going to continue to talk about Trinidad Chambliss all the way up until the 12th. We're going to bring in some perspectives. We got some special interviews working as well. Make sure you subscribe and follow the show so you'll get all the latest episodes. We're on all the social channels as well, so check that out. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Ole Miss ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedonolemiss.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we're going to send you on over to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network channel. And on audio, make sure you check out a second listen. Locked On College Football, Locked On SEC. They are all options for you. Thank you very much for tuning in. We will talk to you later. Hotty toddy.